She had 8 weeks to teach him how to love someone fake. Dr. Maren Cole specialized in intimacy disorders, and her new study required 2 participants willing to follow a scripted relationship with clear boundaries and a termination date. Weekly date nights, scheduled phone calls, practice vulnerability on a timer. She'd found her second subject in Elliot Cross, an architect who'd been left by someone who said he couldn't open up. She hadn't planned to be the first subject herself. Elliot sat across from her desk, reading the contract. 20 pages of protocols, rules for physical touch, guidelines for emotional disclosure, a clean exit strategy at the end. He looked up. "So we pretend to fall in love, then walk away clean?" She nodded. "That's the hypothesis. And you think this works?" "I need to prove it does." He signed the last page, but her hands were already unsteady, and the study hadn't even started. The office smelled like lavender and old paper. Maren set the consent forms on the desk between them. 8 weeks, she said, structured relational exposure. You follow the protocols exactly. At the end, we terminate the arrangement and measure outcomes. Elliot Cross looked younger than 31 in the afternoon light. He wore a canvas jacket with charcoal smudges on one sleeve. An architect, his intake form had said, abandoned by his fiancée 18 months ago. "And you're participating?" he asked. "The study requires 2 subjects, controlled conditions." He leaned back in the chair. "You're a therapist studying intimacy disorders by dating someone." "Not dating, simulating relational patterns under clinical observation." She watched him read through the protocol list. Weekly dinners, scheduled phone conversations, exercises in physical proximity, every interaction documented, every feeling measured on a scale of 1 to 10. "This feels like a job interview for a relationship," he said. "It's an experiment in vulnerability. Most people can't access intimacy because they built walls. This gives you scaffolding to practice." He reached the signature line. The pen hovered. Maren had interviewed 6 candidates. All of them had balked at the clinical nature of the study. Elliot was the first one who'd made it this far. "What happens at week 8? He asked. "We conclude the study, return to our separate lives." Just like that. Just like that. He signed his name in neat architectural lettering. Elliot Cross, Subject 2. She countered with her own signature. Dr. Maren Cole, Subject 1. Outside, the Portland rain started, soft against the window. "This is weird," Elliot said. They sat in a coffee shop near Pioneer Square. Week 1, Session 1. The protocol required a public space, neutral territory, 45 minutes of structured conversation. Maren had a list of questions in her notebook. She'd laminated them. Question 1, she read. "What was your first memory of feeling safe with another person?" Elliot stirred his coffee. He hadn't drunk any of it yet. "We're really doing this." "The study requires baseline emotional mapping." "Right, the study." He looked out the window. People passed in raincoats. "My grandfather's workshop. I was maybe 7. He let me use his tools." Maren wrote it down. Safe spaces, childhood, creative expression. "Your turn," Elliot said. She hadn't expected reciprocation in Session 1. "My turn?" The questions go both ways, don't they? They didn't, actually. The protocol had her as observer, participant, but his eyes were steady, waiting. "My grandmother's kitchen," she said. "She baked bread every Sunday. The house smelled like yeast and honey." He almost smiled. "You're supposed to write that down too." She didn't. The barista called someone's name. A chair scraped. 45 minutes felt very long suddenly. Question 2, Maren said. "Describe a moment when you felt emotionally exposed." Elliot's expression shifted. "When Vanessa left. She packed while I was at work. Left a note that said I was unavailable even when I was standing right there." Maren's pen paused. The intake form hadn't mentioned her name, just former partner. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be. That's why I'm here." The coffee shop was warm, but she felt cold. Outside, the rain kept falling. Maren's apartment was quiet at night. Too quiet. She sat on the couch with her laptop, reviewing session notes. Elliot's responses had been more open than expected. His affect was guarded, but not closed. Promising data. She typed, "Subject 2 demonstrates capacity for emotional recall despite defensive presentation. Prognosis, favorable for protocol adherence." Her phone sat dark on the coffee table. No messages. The protocol didn't include contact between sessions yet. That started week 2. She remembered the way he'd asked about her grandmother's kitchen. The reciprocity he'd insisted on. That wasn't in the study design. She should address it in the next session. Maintain boundaries. The apartment was a one-bedroom in the Pearl District. Minimalist furniture, no photographs. She'd lived here 3 years, and it still looked temporary. Her sister had called twice today. Maren hadn't answered. Jenna wanted to talk about wedding venues and save the date cards. Things Maren had no useful opinions about. She closed the laptop, poured a glass of water she didn't drink. The study was going to work. 8 weeks of structured interaction would demonstrate that intimacy could be learned, practiced, safely contained. She'd publish the findings, prove the method, then she'd go back to this quiet apartment and this careful life, and everything would be fine. Outside, sirens passed in the distance, fading into rain. The cooking class met in a renovated warehouse in Southeast Portland. Week 2, activity-based session. The protocol called for collaborative tasks in low-stakes environments. "I can't cook," Elliot said, tying an apron. "Neither can I. That's why we're here." The instructor demonstrated knife techniques on a cutting board. 12 couples watched, most of them actually dating. Maren and Elliot stood at the back station with bell peppers and unclear instructions. "So we just chop these?" Elliot picked up a knife. "Dice them, small pieces." He started cutting. His hands moved with unexpected precision. Architect hands, she thought, used to exact measurements. "You're good at this," she said. "Cutting vegetables?" "Spatial reasoning." He glanced at her. "Is that an observation for the study or a compliment?" She didn't know. The instructor called for everyone to start their sauces. Maren reached for the olive oil at the same time Elliot did. Their hands collided. He pulled back. "Sorry," he said. "It's fine," but she could still feel where his fingers had brushed hers. Warm. Real. They finished the dish badly. The sauce broke. The pasta overcooked. But when they sat down to eat it, Elliot laughed at how terrible it tasted, and Maren laughed too, and for a moment she forgot to document the interaction. Walking to their cars after, he said, "Same time next week?" "Wednesday, 7 p.m. It's in the schedule." "Right, the schedule." He drove away first. She sat in her car and wrote, Week 2, successful collaborative engagement. Physical contact minimal, but noted. Laughter response, genuine. Then she crossed out the word, genuine. Elliot's studio was in a converted industrial building near the river. Week 3, environment observation. The protocol required each subject to host one session in their primary living space. Maren had expected an apartment. This was something else. The main room had 20-foot ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows, drafting tables covered in sketches, architectural models on every surface, buildings that didn't exist yet, rendered in balsa wood and paper. "You made all of these?" she asked. "It's my job." "Your job is beautiful." He looked at her. "That's definitely not in the protocol." She felt her face warm. "I meant the work, the craftsmanship." "I know what you meant." He showed her a model of a community center, curved walls that let in natural light, spaces designed for gathering without feeling crowded. "It's for a nonprofit," he said. "They'll probably never fund it, but I keep working on it anyway." "Why?" "Because some things are worth building even if no one asks for them." His fingers traced the tiny doorways, the miniature windows. She watched his hands and thought about the way they'd moved in the cooking class. Careful, intentional. The protocol says I'm supposed to ask about your space, he said. What it says about you. What does it say? He studied the room. That you create things that last. That you think about how people move through the world. That you work alone but build for community. She hadn't expected him to be perceptive. The intake assessment had missed that. Your turn next week, he said. I get to see where you live. The thought made her nervous. Her apartment revealed nothing. Maybe that was the problem. She left as the sun set over the river, turning the windows gold. The phone rang at 11 p.m. Week 3, supplemental protocol. 1 unscheduled call per week to practice spontaneous, emotional availability. Maren answered. Hello? Did I wake you? Elliot's voice sounded different on the phone, closer somehow. No, I was reading. The protocol says we're supposed to talk for at least 20 minutes, about nothing important. She closed her book. That's specific. You wrote very detailed instructions. I did. Silence opened between them, not uncomfortable, just there. What were you reading? He asked. Research on attachment patterns. Not exciting. I was drawing, also not exciting. What were you drawing? He paused. A house. Not for a client, just for me. She wanted to ask what kind of house, if it had windows like his studio, if he'd ever build it, or if it would stay paper in imagination. I'm afraid of heights, she said instead. What? You asked in week 1 about feeling exposed. I didn't answer completely. I'm afraid of heights. Have been since I was a kid. Why are you telling me this? Because the protocol says spontaneous disclosure, and because it's true. She could hear him breathing on the other end, the sound of pencil on paper. I'm afraid of being left again, he said, not abandoned dramatically, just coming home and finding someone gone. Her chest tightened. That's not going to happen here. I know, because we have an end date. That's safer, isn't it? She didn't answer. Outside her window, the city glowed. They talked for 43 minutes, about nothing important, about everything. Nina's office smelled like mint tea in concern. You're sleeping with him, Nina said. I'm not. Maren sat across from her colleague. Friend. The person who'd warned her this study was a bad idea. But you want to. That's not relevant. Nina set down her mug. She was 46, South Asian, brilliant, and completely uninterested in Maren's deflections. You're participating in your own intimacy study, as both researcher and subject, with a man you find attractive. How is that not relevant? The protocols prevent attachment, clear boundaries, time limit, clinical oversight. Clinical oversight from whom? I'm not on this study. You refused to bring in a supervisor. The ethics board approved it. Barely, and they'll revoke approval the second this crosses a line. Maren looked out the window. Nina's office faced the parking lot, less romantic than river views and architectural studios. It's working, Maren said. He's opening up, demonstrating vulnerability, exactly what the study predicted. And you? What are you demonstrating? Professional competence. Nina leaned forward. Mare, I've known you for 8 years. You don't do anything unless you can control it completely. This study isn't about proving a therapeutic method. It's about proving you can have intimacy on your terms, with an off switch. That's not true. Then why did you choose 8 weeks? Why not 12? Why not 6 months? Because 8 weeks felt safe. Long enough to gather data, short enough to escape. I have to go, Maren said. Week 4 session in an hour. Nina didn't stop her, but as Maren reached the door, she said, when this ends badly, I'm here. You know that. Maren drove to the park where she was meeting Elliot. She sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, breathing. Then she got out of the car and followed the protocol. The park path wound through Douglas firs and underbrush. Week 4, sustained proximity exercise. 30 minutes of walking side by side. Your colleague doesn't like me, Elliot said. You've never met her. She doesn't like the study then. I can tell by the way you got quiet after seeing her. He was too observant. She'd noted that in session notes but hadn't expected it to turn on her. Nina thinks the research design is flawed, Maren said. Is it? No. They walked in silence. The path opened to a meadow. Wildflowers pushed through tall grass. The protocol says we're supposed to hold hands for the last 10 minutes, Elliot said. He wasn't looking at her. That's correct. To practice casual physical intimacy without sexual context. Yes. He held out his hand, clinical, following instructions. She took it. His palm was warm, rough at the base of the fingers from pencils or tools. His thumb rested against the side of her hand, not moving, just there. They kept walking. The path curved back into trees, shadows, and light. This feels real, he said quietly. It's not. It's structured, therapeutic touch. Right, that's why your pulse just jumped. She started to pull away. He held on, gentle but firm. I'm not saying that's bad, he said. I'm saying the protocol is working. On both of us. A jogger passed. A dog barked somewhere. The world kept moving. Maren didn't let go until the 10 minutes ended. When she did, her hand felt empty. Same time next week, she said. Same time. She watched him walk to his car, reach for her phone to document the session, but her notes just said, Week 4, physical contact, results unclear. She deleted it and tried again. Same result. Her sister's call came during dinner prep. Maren almost didn't answer. You've been avoiding me, Jenna said. I've been busy. For 3 weeks? Mare, I'm getting married. I need you involved. Maren stirred pasta she wasn't hungry for. I know, I'm sorry. We set the date. October 14th. I'm sending you the venue details, and I want you as maid of honor. October 14th. Week 8 of the study. Termination date. That's soon, Maren said. It's 7 months away. We don't want a long engagement. Lucas and I just want to start our lives. Lucas, her sister's fiancé. Maren had met him twice. He seemed kind. Too kind, maybe. The type who'd promise forever and mean it. What if it doesn't work? Maren asked. Silence on the line. Then, what? What if you're wrong about him? What if marriage isn't what you think? Where is this coming from? The pasta water boiled over. Maren turned off the heat. Mom and Dad thought they were sure too. That was different. They were toxic from the start. Jenna's voice went hard. I'm not them. Lucas isn't them. And you don't get to project your fear onto my happiness. I'm not. You are. You've been doing it since I told you we were engaged. You can't imagine a relationship working, so you assume all of them fail. Maren heard someone in the background. Elliot's voice, faint. Everything okay? She turned. He stood in the doorway. She'd given him the spare key last week. Protocol week 4. Exchange access to living spaces for emergency contact purposes. I have to go, Maren said to Jenna. Mare, she ended the call. Elliot set grocery bags on the counter. I thought we could cook together, make up for the disaster last time, but if this is a bad time, my sister is getting married. That's good, isn't it? She wants me to be happy for her, to believe it'll work. And you don't. Maren leaned against the counter. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. My parents spent 20 years destroying each other. They called it love. I watched it. I documented it in journals I still can't throw away. Elliot unpacked the groceries. Tomatoes, fresh basil, pasta better than the box stuff she'd been using. What does that have to do with your sister? He asked. Everything. Nothing. I don't know. He crossed the kitchen, stood close enough that she could smell rain on his jacket. Can I try something? he asked. What? Something not in the protocol. She should say no, should redirect to scheduled activities, should document this deviation. Okay, she said. He put his arms around her. Not romantic, not sexual, just steady and there. She stood rigid for 3 seconds. Then her hands came up and gripped the back of his jacket, and she let herself be held. This doesn't count, she whispered. I know, he said, but they both felt like liars. Week 5, conflict resolution exercise. They sat in Maren's office with a list of hypothetical scenarios. Scenario 1, Maren read, Partner A makes plans without consulting Partner B. How do you address this? Elliot leaned back in his chair. I'd ask why they didn't include me. And if they said they forgot? I'd probably believe them, then resent them quietly for 6 months. Maren wrote it down. Conflict avoidance pattern, passive resentment, textbook attachment anxiety. Your turn, Elliot said. What would you do? I'd establish clearer communication protocols going forward. That's not addressing the feeling, that's managing the system. She looked up from her notes. The system prevents future conflict. But you're still hurt, you just don't say it. They stared at each other across the desk. The office felt different than it had in week 1. Smaller, more personal. Scenario 2, Maren said. Partner B, we're not doing the real conflict, Elliot interrupted. What? Right now, you're upset about something. I can see it, but we're reading from a script instead of talking about it. Her pen stopped. There's no conflict between us. This is a controlled study. Your sister called you 3 times yesterday. You didn't answer. You've been distant all week. That's not relevant to the study parameters. Everything's relevant. That's the whole point, isn't it? We're supposed to practice real vulnerability, but we only do it when the protocol says we can. The clock ticked. Someone walked past in the hallway outside. I don't want to talk about my sister, Maren said. Okay. She wants me at dress fittings and cake tastings, and I don't know how to care about those things. Okay? I'm supposed to give a speech about love and commitment, and I don't believe in either one. Elliot didn't write that down, didn't analyze it, just listened. But this isn't part of the session, Maren said. I know. They sat in silence. The hypothetical scenarios stayed unread. Elliot sat in his truck outside the studio. Week 5, day 3. No session scheduled. No protocol requiring contact. He opened his phone, scrolled to Maren's number, put the phone down, picked it up again. The study was working exactly as designed. Structured interactions, measured emotional disclosure, progressive trust building. In 7 weeks, they'd terminate the arrangement. He'd return to his life. She'd publish her findings, clean and controlled. Except he'd started thinking about her between sessions. The way she held her pen, the way she said his name, clinical and careful. The way she'd gripped his jacket in her kitchen when her sister called. Like she was drowning and he was solid ground. He opened his sketchbook. The house he'd been drawing had changed. More windows now. A kitchen with enough space for 2 people to cook badly together. A reading nook that caught afternoon light. He was drawing her into his imaginary future. That wasn't in the contract. His phone buzzed. A text from his brother. Still doing that weird therapy thing? Elliot typed back, yeah, is it helping? He looked at the sketch, at Maren's number in his contacts, at the calendar that said 3 weeks until halfway done. Don't know yet, he wrote. But he did know. He was falling for someone he was supposed to leave. Someone who designed the study specifically to prove intimacy could be temporary and safe. He closed the sketchbook, started the truck, drove home without calling her. The grocery store on a Saturday afternoon wasn't in the protocol. Maren pushed her cart past produce. She had a list. Eggs, bread, coffee, things that required no thought. Her apartment needed restocking. Her life needed simplicity. Maren? She turned. Elliot stood 3 feet away with a basket of architect bachelor groceries, frozen pizza, beer, apples that looked aspirational. "Hi," she said. "Hi." They stood in the middle of the aisle. An elderly woman maneuvered past them with mild irritation. "We don't have a session until Tuesday," Maren said. "I know, I was just—" He gestured vaguely at the store. "Shopping." "Me too." This was absurd. They were adults having the world's most awkward conversation about produce. "Do you want to—" Elliot started. "Get coffee?" She finished. He smiled. "I was going to say leave separately so this isn't weird, but coffee works." The cafe next door had 3 empty tables. They sat by the window. No notebook, no protocol, no timer. "This doesn't count as a session," Maren said. "Definitely not. We just happened to run into each other. Total coincidence." But he lived in Southeast. This grocery store was in Northwest, 15 minutes from his studio. Maren didn't mention that, neither did he. They talked about nothing for 40 minutes. His latest commission, her sister's latest text about bridesmaid dresses, the rain that hadn't stopped in 6 days. When they left, he walked her to her car. Didn't try to extend the moment, just said, "See you Tuesday." She drove home and didn't document the encounter. It existed outside the study, a moment that didn't count, except she couldn't stop thinking about it. Week 6, Intimacy Exercise 3, Sustained Eye Contact in Proximity Work. They sat on opposite ends of Maren's couch. The protocol was explicit. Face each other, maintain eye contact for 2 minutes, then discuss emotional response. "Ready?" Maren asked. "Ready." She started the timer, looked at him. 2 minutes was a long time to look at someone. His eyes were gray-green, storm-colored. They didn't waver, didn't look away. She watched him watch her, saw the moment his breathing changed, saw the exact second he stopped treating this like an exercise. Her pulse kicked up. The apartment was too warm. 90 seconds left. "Maren," he said quietly, "don't talk. Protocol says silence." "Screw the protocol." He leaned forward. She should pull back, should stop this, should cite Section 7, Paragraph 4, about maintaining appropriate boundaries. His hand came up, cupped her face, thumb at her cheekbone. "Tell me to stop," he said. She couldn't, didn't want to. He kissed her. It wasn't clinical, wasn't measured, wasn't anything the study had prepared her for. His mouth was soft and certain. His other hand found her waist. She made a sound she couldn't take back. The timer went off. She jerked away, stood up, crossed to the window. "That wasn't—" Her voice shook. "That violated the protocol." "I know. We can't do that again." "I know." She pressed her forehead to the cold glass. Outside, the city moved. People living regular lives without research parameters and termination dates. "You should go," she said. She heard him stand, walk to the door, stop. "I'm not sorry," Elliot said. The door closed behind him. She stood at the window until her reflection was the only thing left to see. The coffee shop near her office. Morning. No session scheduled. Maren sat across from Nina, who was staring at her with the expression of someone watching a disaster unfold in slow motion. "You kissed him," Nina said. "He kissed me, and you let him." "For approximately 4 seconds, then I stopped it." Nina sipped her tea. "This study is over, Mare, you know that." "It's not. We can recalibrate, reestablish boundaries, continue with modified parameters." "You're not a robot, neither is he. You can't just reset to factory settings." Maren's coffee was going cold. She wrapped her hands around the cup anyway. "The study has 2 more weeks. The data is promising. I can't terminate early." "The data is compromised. You're emotionally involved with your research subject." "I'm not involved. I'm attracted. There's a difference." "Is there?" Nina leaned forward. What happens in 2 weeks when the study ends? You walk away, he walks away, you both pretend it was a successful experiment in controlled intimacy? That's the design. That's not reality. Maren looked out the window. A couple walked past holding hands. Easy, unstructured, no protocols. He said he's not sorry, she said quietly. Are you? She didn't answer, couldn't answer. Nina reached across the table, touched her hand. I'm worried about you. Don't be, I have everything under control. But her hands were shaking when she picked up her coffee. Week 6, Session 2. Back in Maren's office, professional distance reestablished. We need to address what happened, Maren said. Elliot sat across from her, formal, careful. Okay. The study has clear physical boundaries. What occurred was a deviation that can't be repeated. I understand. Going forward, we maintain professional conduct. No contact outside scheduled sessions. No physical intimacy beyond protocol specifications. Got it. His voice was flat, empty. She'd heard that tone before in intake sessions, the sound of someone shutting down. The research is still viable, she continued. We have valuable data on trust progression and vulnerability development. 2 more weeks will complete the sample. 2 more weeks, he repeated. Then we conclude, as planned. He looked at her, really looked at her. You actually think we can just turn this off? It's not about turning anything off. It's about maintaining appropriate boundaries for valid research. This isn't research anymore, Maren. It hasn't been for weeks. That's not true. You're lying to yourself. I can see it. She felt something crack inside her chest. What do you want me to say? That I felt something? That the kiss meant something? It doesn't matter what I felt. We have a contract, an end date. That's what we agreed to. I didn't agree to fall for you. The words hung between them, heavy, real. Don't, she said. Don't what? Don't feel it? Too late. Don't say it? I just did. Elliot, I'm in love with you. He said it clearly, no hesitation. I know that breaks every rule in your protocol. I know it invalidates the study. I know it's not what you wanted, but it's true. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair. You're confusing structured intimacy with actual emotion. That's a known phenomenon in therapeutic relationships. It's called transference. This isn't transference. This is me, knowing exactly what I feel, telling you directly. We have 2 weeks left. I don't care about the timeline. I do. Her voice broke. I care about the timeline because that's what keeps this safe. That's what makes it survivable. 2 more weeks and we're done, and no one gets destroyed. He stood up. I'm not your parents, Maren. Loving you won't destroy me. You don't know that. Neither do you. He left. Didn't wait for dismissal. Didn't follow protocol. She sat in her empty office and tried to breathe. Week 7. The dinner protocol required a restaurant. Moderately formal. Public setting. Structured conversation topics. They sat across from each other in a booth. The menu was extensive. Neither of them looked at it. How was your week? Maren asked. Topic 1. Daily life updates. Fine, Elliot said. Any new projects? A few. The waiter came. They ordered without enthusiasm. The restaurant was full of actual couples having actual dates with actual feelings they weren't afraid to acknowledge. Topic 2, Maren said. Discuss a recent challenge and how you addressed it. I fell in love with someone unavailable. I told her anyway. She cited research protocols. I'm currently addressing it by sitting through this dinner. Maren set down her water glass. That's not productive. None of this is productive. We're playing house while running the clock. We're completing the study. We're lying. The food arrived. They didn't eat. Maren watched him across the table. He looked tired, hurt. She'd done that. Her careful protocols and safe boundaries had hurt someone anyway. I can't do this, she said quietly. The dinner? Any of it. The study. The pretending. then don't. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You just have to be brave enough to try. But she wasn't brave. She was careful, controlled. She kept everything at a measured distance because she'd seen what happened when people got too close. "One more week," she said, "then it's over." Elliot put cash on the table, stood up. "Yeah, it is." He left her sitting there. The waiter looked confused. Maren didn't explain. Jenna's bridal shower was in a restaurant with too much white and champagne. Maren arrived alone, then saw Elliot pull up in his truck. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "You invited me. Week 7, Social Integration Protocol. I'm supposed to meet your family." "That was before I violated the study? I'm still your research subject for 5 more days. Protocol says I'm here." Her mother materialized from inside, tall, brittle, with the same careful control Maren had learned to mirror. "Maren, you brought someone." "This is Elliot. He's her boyfriend," Elliot said, extending his hand. "Nice to meet you." Maren's mother shook his hand, evaluated him in 3 seconds. "How long have you been together?" 7 weeks, Elliot said, "but it feels longer." They went inside. Jenna rushed over, glowing in bridal shower pink. "You came, and you brought him. Oh my God, Mare, you've been hiding a boyfriend?" "It's not, it's new," Elliot said smoothly. "We're taking it slow." Jenna beamed, introduced them to cousins and friends and Lucas's family. Everyone assumed they were real. A real couple at a real celebration for real love. The shower game started. Maren ended up sitting next to Elliot on a couch while Jenna opened gifts. His thigh pressed against hers. His hand rested near her knee. "You're good at this," she whispered. "At what?" "Pretending." He looked at her. "I'm not pretending." A cousin asked them how they met. Elliot told a story about a chance meeting at a bookstore. Maren didn't correct him. The lie was easier than the truth. After, in the parking lot, Jenna caught them before they could leave separately. "I'm so happy for you," she said, hugging Maren. "You deserve this. You deserve someone who looks at you the way he does." Maren glanced at Elliot. He was watching her, the way her sister described. "Thanks, Jen." Jenna left. They stood by their separate cars. "I should go," Maren said. "Yeah, 5 more days." "I know." He got in his truck. She watched him drive away, then sat in her car and cried. The drive back to her apartment took 20 minutes. Elliot's truck was already in the parking lot. He was leaning against his door when she pulled in, waiting. She got out. "What are you doing here?" "Was any of that real?" he asked. "The shower?" "That was not the shower. Any of this. The 7 weeks, the sessions, the phone calls, the grocery store. Was any of it real for you?" Rain started, light mist turning to drops. "It was research," she said. "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." He pushed off from the truck, walked toward her. "Try again." "Elliot, you're scared, I get it, but don't lie to me. Don't tell me this was just data and protocols and nothing else mattered." The rain was getting heavier. Her hair was wet. Her hands were shaking. "It doesn't matter what it was," she said. "It ends in 5 days either way. It ends if you want it to end." "I signed a contract." "Screw the contract." "I can't. I need the study to work. I need to prove," her voice broke, "I need to prove love can be contained, that it doesn't have to be destructive, that you can let someone in and then let them go and survive it." "That's not love," Elliot said. "That's a controlled experiment, and you know the difference." "I don't. I really don't." He was close enough to touch now, close enough to kiss, close enough to break every rule she'd written. "Ask me to stay," he said. "I can't." "Ask me to stay and I will. No study, no protocol, just us, real and messy and terrifying." She wanted to. God, she wanted to. 5 days, she whispered. That's what we agreed. He stepped back, nodded, got in his truck. She watched him leave. Again. Elliot sat in his studio at 2 in the morning, couldn't sleep, couldn't draw. The house sketch mocked him from the drafting table. He picked up the whole project, walked to the window, looked at the river below. He could throw it, watch 7 weeks of imaginary future sink into dark water. That would be poetic, symbolic, the kind of gesture people made in movies. He set it down instead, opened his laptop, pulled up the study journal he wasn't supposed to be keeping. Maren didn't know about it. The protocol required documented sessions only, but he'd been writing his own observations, real feelings, unfiltered thoughts. Week 1, she's fascinating and terrified. Can't tell which one draws me more. Week 3, she held my hand today, wrote it down like data, didn't write down how her fingers trembled. Week 5, I'm falling for someone who designed a relationship with an expiration date. That's either ironic or tragic. Week 7, she cried in the parking lot. Thought I couldn't see. I saw. He scrolled to a blank page, started typing. Week 7, day 5. I told her I love her. She told me we have a timeline. I don't know how to love someone on a schedule. I don't know how to stop. His phone sat silent on the desk. No messages, no protocol-mandated contact. In 3 days, they'd have the final session, sign termination paperwork, measure outcomes on a scale of 1 to 10. He'd survived Vanessa leaving. He'd survived this too. But this felt different. Vanessa had left because he wasn't enough. Maren would leave because he was too much, because real love didn't fit her protocols. He closed the laptop, watched the river, waited for morning. Week 8, day 1, Maren's office, final session before termination. The paperwork sat between them, closure assessments, outcome measurements, 8 weeks reduced to data points. Question 1, Maren read, rate your overall trust development on a scale of 1 to 10. Elliot looked at her. 10. She wrote it down. Question 2, did you achieve your stated goal of increased emotional availability? Yes. Question 3, Maren, stop. She kept her eyes on the form. We need to complete the assessment. Look at me. She did. Finally. I love you, he said. I know I already told you. I know it's not what you want to hear. But in 3 days we're supposed to walk away from each other, and I need you to know it's real. Her pen didn't move. The study parameters. I don't care about the parameters. I care about you. The real you. Not the researcher. Not the therapist. The woman who's terrified of heights and can't cook and cried in her car because her sister's happy. This is inappropriate. This is honest. She set down the pen. Her hands were shaking. You don't understand. I can't do this. I've watched love destroy people. I've documented it, studied it. I can't be that. You're not your parents. How do you know? Because you're sitting here trying to protect me even when it's killing you. That's not destruction. That's care. She stood up, walked to the window. In 3 days this ends. We go back to our lives. That was always the plan. Plans change. Mine don't. Then you're choosing fear over everything else. She heard him stand, heard papers shuffle, heard the door open. I'll be here for the final session, Elliot said. Friday at 2. I'll sign whatever you need. But after that, I'm done pretending this was just research. The door closed. Maren stood at the window, watched rain streak the glass, felt everything she'd tried to control slip through her careful fingers. Night. Maren's apartment. She sat on the floor surrounded by journals, 20 years of observations. Her parents' fights transcribed in teenager handwriting, the accusations, the slammed doors, the long silences worse than screaming. She documented it all, made it data, tried to understand why people who claimed to love each other could hurt so much. Her mother's voice, recorded in memory. You're just like your father, cold, unavailable. Her father's response, better cold than crazy. They divorced when she was 16. Neither one had been happy before. Neither one had been happy after. They just stopped destroying each other in shared space. She opened a journal from college, page after page of notes on attachment theory, relationship dynamics, the psychology of intimacy. She'd been trying to solve them, fix them retroactively with understanding. It hadn't worked. They were still bitter, still alone, still proof that love was just controlled destruction on a timeline. Except Jenna wasn't them. Jenna was happy, choosing marriage with full knowledge of the risk. And Elliot wasn't them. Elliot was honest, clear, wanting her without wanting to change her. And maybe she wasn't them either. Maybe she was just scared. She picked up her phone, typed, "I'm sorry," deleted it, typed, "Can we talk?" Deleted that too. Put the phone down, stared at 20 years of evidence that love failed. Then picked up the phone again and pressed call. It rang 4 times. She almost hung up. "Hello?" Elliot's voice. Careful, guarded. "I don't know how to do this," she said. "Do what?" "Love someone without a protocol, without an end date, without a safety net." Silence. Then, "You don't have to know. You just have to try." "I'm terrified." "Me too. What if I'm like them? What if I hurt you? What if you don't?" She closed her eyes, the journal spread around her, all that documentation of failure. "I need time," she said. "Okay. Not weeks. Just until Friday. Let me get through the final session. Let me close this properly. And then? And then I don't know. But maybe we figure it out. Without a study, without protocols." She heard him breathe out. "Friday at 2. Friday at 2. She ended the call, sat in her apartment surrounded by the past, trying to imagine a future without timelines. Thursday, one day before termination, Maren tried calling Elliot, once in the morning, once at lunch, once at 7 p.m. He didn't answer. She texted, "Can we talk before tomorrow?" The message showed delivered, not read. At 9 p.m., she drove to his studio. The lights were off. His truck was gone. She called again. Voicemail. "It's me," she said. "I know I said Friday, but I need to talk to you. I need to tell you." She stopped, started over. "Please call me back." He didn't. She drove home, sat in her apartment, watched her phone. Nothing. At midnight, she texted Nina, "I think I ruined it." Nina called immediately. "What happened?" "I told him I needed time. He gave it to me. Now he won't answer." "Maybe he's thinking, processing. You asked him to wait. He's waiting." "What if he changed his mind? What if he decided I'm not worth the risk?" "Mare, listen to me. Tomorrow you finish the study. You sign the paperwork. Then you tell him the truth without protocols or timelines. And if he's half the man you've described, he'll listen. What if he doesn't? Then you survive, like you always do." Maren ended the call, stared at her silent phone. One more day. Friday, 2 p.m., final session. Maren waited in her office. The termination paperwork was stacked neatly on the desk. 8 weeks reduced to signatures and outcome scores. 2:15. Elliot wasn't there. 2:30. Still nothing. She called. Voicemail. Texted, "Are you coming?" No response. At 3 p.m., she accepted it. He wasn't coming. She sat alone in her office with paperwork that would never be signed. A study that would never be completed. Proof that love couldn't be controlled, couldn't be contained, couldn't be safely researched without consequences. She'd lost him. Not to termination, not to protocol, to her own fear and his decision that he deserved better than someone who loved on a schedule. She picked up her pen, wrote one final note in the research journal. Study terminated early. Researcher attachment compromised validity. Subject 2 withdrew before completion. Conclusion: intimacy cannot be simulated without becoming real. Cost: unknown. She closed the journal, locked her office, drove home in afternoon light that looked nothing like endings were supposed to look. Her phone stayed silent. 3 days after the missed session, Maren sat in her office staring at incomplete paperwork. The ethics board had sent an email. Formal. Clinical. They needed the study results or an explanation for early termination. She had 2 weeks to respond. She typed, "Subject 2 withdrew consent. Study terminated week 8, day 1. Deleted it. Typed, "Researcher bias compromised study integrity. Results invalid." Deleted that too. Nina appeared in the doorway. "You look terrible." "Thanks. Have you eaten?" "Not hungry." Nina sat down, set a sandwich on the desk. "Eat anyway." Maren looked at the sandwich, looked at Nina. "He didn't show up." "I know. I waited 2 hours. He just didn't come." "Maybe that's your answer." "What answer?" "That he's done. That you asked for too much space and he took it. That he decided someone who needs a protocol to feel safe isn't worth the risk." Nina's voice was gentle, brutal. "Maybe that's what you needed to hear." Maren felt something crack wider in her chest. "I was going to tell him. Friday, I was going to say I wanted to try, without the study, without the timeline." "Did you tell him that?" "I asked for time first. And he gave it to you. Then you called him repeatedly the night before, asking him to break the boundary you set." Maren closed her eyes. "I panicked." "You always panic. That's your pattern. Get close, then push away, then panic when they leave." Nina leaned forward. "Mare, I love you, but you have to decide. Either you're brave enough to risk getting hurt, or you're not. There's no protocol for that." The sandwich sat untouched. Maren's phone sat silent. "What if I already lost him?" "Then you learn. You grieve. You try again with someone else." "I don't want someone else." "Then you fight for him." Maren looked at the incomplete paperwork, the study that had failed, the 8 weeks that had proven nothing except that she was exactly as scared as she'd always been. "I don't know how," she said. "Yes, you do. You just have to be honest. Completely honest. No research, no protocols, just truth." Nina left. The sandwich stayed. Maren sat in her office until the light changed and evening came. Then she picked up her phone and started typing. Maren's apartment at midnight. She sat on the floor with her laptop open. The research journal filled the screen. 8 weeks of observations, clinical notes, measurements. She scrolled to the beginning. Week 1, Session 1. Subject 2 presents as guarded but cooperative. Demonstrates capacity for structured vulnerability. Prognosis, favorable. She kept scrolling. Week 3. Physical contact exercise successful. Both subjects showed physiological indicators of comfort. Note, maintain professional distance. Week 5. Subject 2 expressed romantic feelings. Deviation from protocol. Must reestablish boundaries. Week 7. Study integrity compromised. Researcher experiencing attachment. Recommend early termination. Every note was careful, clinical, a perfect record of her trying to control something uncontrollable. She opened a new document, started typing without structure. "I met Elliot Cross 8 weeks ago. I told him I could teach him to be vulnerable. I told him we could practice intimacy safely. I told him there would be an end date and we'd both walk away fine. I lied. Not intentionally. I believed it when I said it. I believed I could observe love without feeling it. Document connection without experiencing it. Stay safe behind my protocols, in my timelines, in my carefully controlled parameters." But on week 4, he held my hand in a park, and I felt something I couldn't measure. On week 6, he kissed me, and I felt something I couldn't contain. On week 7, he told me he loved me, and I felt something I couldn't deny. I told him I needed time. He gave it to me. Then I panicked and called him 20 times in 2 days because I'm terrified of being alone, but more terrified of being close. He didn't come to the final session. I don't blame him. But if he ever reads this, I want him to know I was wrong. About the study, about love, about what I thought I needed to feel safe. I don't need a protocol. I need him. She saved the document, titled it, The Truth Without Data. Then she looked up his address, got in her car, drove through midnight Portland to his studio. The lights were on. She stood outside his door for 5 minutes before knocking. No answer. She knocked again. Elliot, I know you're in there. I can see the light. Silence. I'm not leaving. I'll stand here all night if I have to. I'll quote every protocol I violated. I'll explain exactly how badly I handled everything. The door opened. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. 3 days of not shaving. A man who'd been hurt and was still bleeding. What do you want? He asked. To talk. We talked. You said you needed time. I gave it to you. I know, but then you called me 15 times Thursday night, texted me asking to move up the final session, asked me to break the boundary you set. His voice was flat. I can't do this, Maren. I can't be with someone who only wants me when they're panicking. That's not. It is. You push me away, then pull me back, then push again. I understand you're scared. I understand your parents hurt each other. But I can't be your experiment in whether love is safe. I need someone who chooses me, not someone who tolerates me between panic attacks. The words hit like physical blows, true and terrible. You're right, she said. He blinked. What? You're right, about all of it. I pushed you away. I used the study as a shield. I convinced myself I could love you on a schedule and walk away unscathed. She stepped closer. But I can't walk away. I tried. I lasted 3 days. And I'm here now because I'm choosing you. Not the protocol, not the timeline. You. You said that Thursday. Then you took it back Friday. I didn't take it back. I panicked. I'm good at panicking. I've practiced it for 20 years. But I'm trying to be brave enough to stop. He leaned against the doorframe, looked at her. What are you asking for? A real chance. No study, no contract, no end date. Just us. Messy and terrifying and real. What if it doesn't work? Then it doesn't work. And we survive anyway. But what if it does? The hallway was quiet. Somewhere, someone's TV played. A car passed outside. I'm still angry, Elliot said. I know. You hurt me. The no-show wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about making you feel what I felt. I know. So this isn't fixed. You don't just show up at midnight and declare feelings and everything's okay. I know that too. He looked at her for a long moment. Come inside. His studio was exactly as she remembered. Drafting tables, architectural models, windows overlooking the river. Except the house model was gone. Where is it? She asked. The house you were drawing? Destroyed it 3 days ago. He poured water into 2 glasses, handed her one. Seemed melodramatic at the time, still does. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was imaginary anyway. They sat on opposite ends of his couch, the same distance they'd maintained in week 1. Back to the beginning. Why didn't you come Friday? Maren asked. Because I was tired. Of hoping. Of waiting for you to decide I was worth the risk. Of being the one who said, I love you, while you cited study parameters. I was going to tell you Friday that I wanted to try for real. Were you? Or were you going to ask for more time? Another protocol? Another way to keep me at arm's length? She didn't have an answer. Didn't know what she would have said. I wrote something tonight, she said instead. Not research notes, not clinical observations. Just the truth. About what happened. About how I felt. And And I realize I spent 8 weeks documenting our relationship like it was happening to someone else, like I could stay detached and safe. But I wasn't detached. I was terrified, and I'm still terrified. Of me, of me, of turning into my mother, of loving someone so much it becomes destructive. Elliot set down his glass. I met your mother at the bridal shower. She's polite and distant and completely disconnected. You're nothing like her. How do you know? Because you're sitting here at 1 in the morning admitting you're scared. She would never do that. She'd maintain the distance and call it dignity. Maren felt tears burn, fought them back, lost. I don't know how to do this without rules, she whispered. Neither do I, but we figure it out together. What if I panic again? Then you panic, and I'll be frustrated, and we'll fight about it, and then we'll figure it out. That doesn't sound safe. It's not, but it's real. She looked at him across the couch, 3 feet of space, the same distance as week 1. Except now she knew what his hands felt like, what his voice sounded like at midnight, what it cost to almost lose him. Can I ask you something? She said. Yeah. When you signed the contract week 1, did you know you'd fall for me? He was quiet for a moment. No, I thought I'd learn to be vulnerable and leave. That's what the study promised. And now? Now I know the study was bullshit. You can't practice love. You just do it. Messy and terrifying and real. She moved across the couch, closed the 3 feet of space, sat next to him. I love you, she said. No protocol, no data, just truth. His hand found hers. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Elliot Cross, and I'm sorry I made you prove it alone for so long. He pulled her close, kissed her. Not like week 6, not like an exercise, like someone who'd been waiting and hurting and choosing her anyway. When they broke apart, she was crying. So was he. This is terrifying, she said. I know. I don't have a protocol for this. Good, we'll make it up as we go. Sunday morning, Maren's apartment. She sat at her kitchen table with coffee and her phone. Jenna's name on the screen, the call she'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. She pressed dial. Mare? Oh my God, finally. I've been texting you for days. Jenna sounded concerned, annoyed, sisterly. I know, I'm sorry. Are you okay? Is it Elliot? Did something happen? We broke up, then we got back together, then we broke up again. Then I showed up at his place at midnight and we're trying for real now. No fake dating, no research, just us. Silence on the line. Then, wait, what do you mean fake dating? Maren closed her eyes. It's complicated. Uncomplicated. So she did. Explain the study, the protocols, the 8-week timeline, the termination date that was supposed to be Jenna's wedding day. All of it. When she finished, Jenna was quiet for a long time. You brought a fake boyfriend to my bridal shower, she finally said. Yes. And didn't tell me. I was trying to protect myself and probably sabotaging your happiness in the process. I'm sorry. More silence. Then, Mom and Dad really messed you up, didn't they? Maren laughed. It came out wet. Yeah, they did. Mare, I need you to hear this. Lucas and I aren't them. We fight sometimes. We disagree. But it's not destructive. It's just real. And you and Elliot won't be them either. How do you know? Because you called me at 9 a.m. on a Sunday to apologize for bringing a fake boyfriend to my shower. Mom would never admit she was wrong about anything. That's the difference. Maren wiped her eyes. I'm still scared. Of course you are, but you're doing it anyway. That's brave. I don't feel brave. Brave people never do, Jenna paused. So is Elliot coming to the wedding? For real this time? I haven't asked him yet. Ask him. I like him. Even if your whole relationship started as a bizarre psychological experiment. It wasn't bizarre. It was controlled and methodical. Mare, it was bizarre. She laughed again, real this time. Yeah, it was. They talked for another hour, about wedding details and dress fittings, and whether Maren's speech could avoid mentioning research studies. When they hung up, Maren felt lighter. One relationship repaired, one to go. Tuesday evening, Elliot's studio. They'd spent 2 days talking, figuring out what real looked like. We need rules, Maren said. I thought we were done with protocols. Not protocols, just basic agreements, so we don't destroy each other. He smiled. Okay, you first. If I panic and push you away, you call me on it. Don't let me hide. Agreed. My turn. If I shut down and go quiet, you ask what I'm feeling. Don't assume the worst. Agreed. She thought for a moment. If we fight, we don't leave angry. We stay until it's resolved. Even if it takes all night? Especially then. He pulled her closer. They were sitting on the couch, her back against his chest, his arms around her waist. Easy, unstructured. My turn, he said. If you need space, you tell me. You don't just disappear. I can do that. And if I need reassurance that you're not going to change your mind and cite research parameters, you give it to me. She turned to look at him. I'm not going to change my mind. Even when it's scary? Especially when it's scary. He kissed her temple. Good. They sat in comfortable silence. The river outside reflected city lights. Inside, they were warm. My sister wants you at the wedding, Maren said. For real this time. When is it? October 14th. That was supposed to be our termination date. Poetic. She called it bizarre, the whole study. It was bizarre, but it worked. It spectacularly failed. The data is invalid. The ethics board is demanding an explanation. I might have to retract any plans to publish. But you found me. I found you. That's success. She settled back against him. When did you get so optimistic? When you showed up at my door at midnight looking terrified and brave. I wasn't brave. You were. You are. Outside, the river kept flowing. Inside, they built something without blueprints. Friday, Maren's office. Nina sat across from her with raised eyebrows. So you're together, Nina said. We're trying. How's that going? Terrifying. Good. Real. And the study? Maren handed her a document. I'm withdrawing it, writing up the failure, submitting it to the ethics board with a full explanation of researcher bias. Nina read through it. This is professional suicide. I know. You're admitting you became emotionally involved with your research subject, that you compromised study integrity, that the entire 8 weeks was invalid. Because it's true. Mayor, you could lose your license. The board could rule this as unethical conduct. Then they do. I'm not lying about what happened. Nina set down the document, looked at her. Who are you and what did you do with my careful, controlled colleague? She's learning to be messy. How's that feel? Awful. Liberating. Both. Nina smiled. Good, you're going to be okay. You think so? I know so. Because you're finally choosing honesty over safety. That's growth. Maren looked at the document, her career, her reputation. 8 weeks that would be remembered as a failure. Except it wasn't a failure. It was the most successful disaster of her life. I'm bringing Elliot to Jenna's wedding, she said. As your boyfriend? As my person, whatever that means. It means you're in love. Yeah, Maren said. I guess it does. 3 weeks later, the night before Jenna's wedding. Rehearsal dinner at a restaurant Maren didn't choose. She stood in the bathroom staring at her reflection. Behind her, the door opened. Jenna came in. You okay? Jenna asked. Nervous. About tomorrow? About the speech. About standing up there and talking about love like I understand it. Jenna leaned against the sink. You do understand it. You're living it. For 3 weeks, that's not exactly expert testimony. You've been studying it for 20 years. You just started practicing it 3 weeks ago. There's a difference. Maren looked at her sister, 26, glowing, brave enough to choose forever with someone. Were you scared? Maren asked. When Lucas proposed? Terrified. But you said yes anyway. Because being without him scared me more. Maren nodded. That's how I feel about Elliot. Like the fear of losing him is bigger than the fear of trying. Then that's your speech. That's what you tell everyone tomorrow. That I'm terrified? That you're brave enough to try anyway. They went back to the table. Elliot was talking to Lucas about architecture. Her mother was at the other end, distant and polite. Her father hadn't come. Elliot saw her, smiled, held out the chair next to him. She sat down. His hand found hers under the table. You good? He asked quietly. Yeah, I'm good. And for the first time in 20 years, she meant it. The wedding was outdoors, October light turning everything gold. Jenna looked beautiful. Lucas looked terrified and happy. Maren stood at the front with the other bridesmaids. Elliot sat 3 rows back. She could feel him watching. The ceremony was short, traditional, full of promises about forever and devotion and choosing each other daily. When they said, I do, Maren didn't think about her parents, didn't think about divorce statistics, didn't think about all the ways love could fail. She thought about Elliot's hand in hers under a rehearsal dinner table. She thought about midnight confessions and destroyed architectural models and 8 weeks that were supposed to be safe. The reception moved indoors. Dinner, dancing, speeches. Maren's turn came after the best man. She stood at the microphone with note cards she'd rewritten 17 times. I'm supposed to talk about love, she started, which is funny because 3 months ago, I didn't believe in it. Not really. I'd studied it, researched it, documented it, but I'd never trusted it. She looked at Jenna, at Lucas, at Elliot in the back. My sister asked me to be her maid of honor, and I almost said no, because I was afraid that standing up here meant endorsing something I couldn't guarantee, afraid that watching her promise forever meant watching her risk everything. The room was quiet, listening. But then I fell in love, accidentally, messily, against all my careful protocols, and I learned something. Love isn't about guarantees. It's not about safety. It's about choosing someone even when you're terrified, especially when you're terrified. She looked at Elliot. He was watching her, steady, there. So, Jenna and Lucas, I can't promise you it'll be easy. I can't promise you won't fight. I can't promise forever, because nobody can. But I can promise this. If you keep choosing each other, especially when it's hard, you'll be okay. Better than okay. She raised her glass. To love, terrifying, messy, and real. Everyone drank. Jenna was crying. So was Maren. When she sat down, Elliot leaned over from his seat. That was beautiful. It was terrifying. You're good at terrifying now, she laughed. I'm getting practice. Late. The reception winding down. Maren and Elliot stood outside on the terrace. Music drifted through open doors. Inside, Jenna and Lucas danced. Outside, the October night was cool and clear. Your speech made your mother cry, Elliot said. I saw. Good tears or bad tears? With her, who knows? They stood at the railing. The venue overlooked the river. City lights reflected on dark water. I've been thinking, Elliot said. About? The house I destroyed. I want to rebuild it. Why? Because I wasn't wrong to imagine it. I was just early. We weren't ready yet. She turned to face him. And now? Now I think we might be. He touched her face. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. A house, a future, all the terrifying real things. That's a lot of eventually. We've got time. No timeline? No timeline, just us figuring it out. She kissed him, soft and certain, a promise without protocols. Inside, the DJ announced the last dance. Jenna and Lucas pulled everyone onto the floor. Someone grabbed Maren's hand, dragging her inside. Elliot followed. They danced. Badly. Without structure. Surrounded by family and strangers in the messy reality of love. When the music ended and the lights came up and everyone started leaving, Elliot drove her home. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. In her apartment, they stood by the window. The city glowed below. "I love you," Maren said. "No data, no measurement, just fact." "I love you too," Elliot said. "No protocol necessary." "What happens now?" "Now we keep choosing this, every day, even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. Especially then." Outside, the city moved. Inside, they were still. Together. Real. No end date, no termination clause. Just two people who'd learned to be vulnerable without a manual. Who'd learned to love without guarantees. It was terrifying. It was perfect.